Let's now get some perspectives on the meeting of the President Muhammadu Buhari and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump in Washington today. And I'm now being joined by an international affairs analyst, Curtis Adigba. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us here on the news at 10. What's your impression of today's meeting? Because between the President, of course, the two presidents, what's your impression of their meeting today?
I think it went very well. They both accomplished the strategic objectives that they went to pursue in the meeting. So to that extent, you could say that the meeting went very well, especially from the part of the country. President Buhari went to the United States of America seeking for support to combat terrorism. He got that assurance from President Trump, who also, was very happy to announce that the U.S. had lifted the arms embargo that was placed on Nigeria, and they are prepared to sell more arms to Nigeria to help Nigeria out. So I think it went very well. He also went looking for investment. He got that promise from President Trump that American businesses in agriculture, in technology, are willing to come to Nigeria.
Well, what do you think happened? What has changed really between relations of Nigeria and the U.S.? Because the former President Barack Obama, we didn't have this kind of support from the U.S., but we're seeing that now. How much has changed and what has changed indeed to see this kind of development and fostering relations between Nigeria and the United States?
Okay, first of all, you must understand that individuals have got sensibilities towards certain things. The former President Barack Obama acted on the fact that Nigeria was abusing human rights, and that you couldn't sell such arms to them, based on the reports by Amnesty International and co. Now, when you look at President Trump, for instance, he's not a man who is given to so much care about human rights. Even as a candidate, you could hear him ask his supporters to beat up people during his campaign, and says he will pay for the legal suit. He would say, take them out on this. In those days, he would have taken you out on the stretcher. Not too long ago, he was somewhere in New York where he was telling the cops in America when he met with them that don't be too nice to people when you're taking them into your car. You tell them to bend their heads. No, just squeeze them into the car. So when it comes to the issue of human rights, you find this, substantial difference in terms of approach between President Obama and President Trump. And that's why President Trump said, look, I don't understand why there was this embargo on Nigeria in the first place. And for whatever reason, we felt it was unjustified, and we've lifted it. So that explains,
that's a change.
Yes, why you have this, shift, as it were, in the policy.
We also know that President Trump confirmed the purchase of this 12 fighter aircraft from the U.S. Do you think that this has any effect on the views of the National Assembly?
I don't think so, because the issue basically is a partisan, is partisan politics that is at play. Look, I don't think anybody is actually questioning whether we needed those helicopters to combat terrorism. And I think in a normal political atmosphere, where you put the interests of the country far and above personal or group interests, nobody will probably have this problem. This issue. What would have happened basically is the National Assembly asking the President to ameliorate the defect, or the irregularity in the processing, to say, why don't you do us a letter, and then we can sit down and look at it together. But when you have a toxic partisan political atmosphere, this is what you get. And look, let me tell you something. A lot of people don't understand. When you are dealing in diplomacy, it's not about goodness. It's not about feeling. It is about strategic interests. President Trump would not have invited President Buhari to the United States if we had not bought those military hardware from the United States.
But beyond the interests, one would wonder and say that Nigeria is a country of laws. We're guided by laws, as America is also guided by laws. Would you say that will be an infraction on this government if money is appropriate and not appropriated but are spent?
Gimba, you and I know that there is no institution of government in this country that sticks or plays by the rule exactly all the time. All right? We have a National Assembly. Let me give you an example, for instance. Section 70 of the Nigerian Constitution talks about the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, you know, fixing the salaries and allowances of the members of the National Assembly. Is that happening? You understand what I'm saying? So look, I understand, you know, this desire for legalities taken with all constitutional provisions, you know, and doing things the way it should be done. And I agree that, look, the laws are there to be followed. But of course, laws are made by human beings, and in some circumstances, you could shift a little bit. You understand what I'm saying? So why I think that, look,
you think the president uses executive powers freely without the consent of the National Assembly?
But, you know,
would that make it right?
I don't think, look, it's not about being right or being wrong for me here. What I think is whether what he did was in national interest, and I think it's in national interest. And that is why I said, look, in a situation where you have people working for the interests of the country and not trying to protect their political turf, this wouldn't have been a serious issue.
That's a good place
especially where you have the ruling party dominating or having majority in both houses of the Nigerian National Assembly.
That's a good place to let it rest. I must thank you so much indeed for talking to us, an international affairs analyst, Curtis Adigba. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.